Hello, this is Max Drake. I want to talk about activating Python scripts using hotkeys. Now, inside Python, you can actually use hotkeys, and I'll demonstrate that shortly. But what I was thinking about doing was actually using AutoHotKeys, which is a Windows utility program, to run the Python scripts for me instead. Now, why would I want to do this? Well, let's just fire it up and see what actually happens here. So we're just going to run this script through here. So this first one here, my label, basically that just goes and opens a Python file which actually just says welcome to AutoHotKey Python or run script or something like that. Holds it open for 2 seconds, closes it, and then it has a couple of pop-up boxes. So here's the script down here, opens a file, gives the message box of where the path to that file is, and then gives a value and then uses a variable to do it, because the variables are slightly changed from AutoHotKey version 2 to version 1, and it's not backward compatible. So just running this thing through here, I'm just going to go Shift plus Alt plus O. It pops up with hello AutoCAD, stays up there to 2 minutes. It shows you where the path is, and then the last one shows you the value. So it was just testing out a whole lot of trivial little things just to see that it worked. And one of the ideas was with this is that I wanted a whole lot of little Python scripts to just do little utility things. And I want to, although I could write them in AutoHotKey, I want to write them in Python. And although these are trivial examples, I could actually do more sophisticated ones. And the reason for doing this and the methodology in a way is because when I transitioned from AutoHotKey across to Python, one of the issues I had was AutoHotKeys were so easy to write and run. You'd just run them, you'd have them running in the tray and off they go. That's one of the things which stopped me from going across to Python. Actually deploying a Python script so that you could utilize it all the time ended up being a bit of a task. You know, now it can do some phenomenal stuff, and it's one grunty program that I love using. But, you know, to trigger a lot of the things off, I've actually got the scripts on a task scheduler on my server that will trigger, and they will go and make an API call, then they'll do a bit of processing inside of a Python data frame. Then they'll create a PDF, and then they'll email me the PDF, so that I've actually got that information which has just been dragged out of an API. So fantastic, you can do all of these different steps and do it, trigger it and send them across to me. But the thing is, you've got to get that deployment thing right. So I've got it deployed on my server, just so that I know that every day it'll actually happen like that. So I suddenly thought, well, actually I can have that on a hotkey so that I can trigger it. So I didn't need to email myself. It can actually just create the part of the process. Although the email is good is if you're traveling out and about and you need a bit of information. The other way you can deploy things is using a Flask app or a Streamlit app or things like that. And I've done a couple of those for a few different things. But they're sort of like, you've got the program, it's nice running, it does its nice little things, then you've got to find some way of actually deploying it so it runs. So left with this, I suddenly thought, well, okay then, I can deploy it using a Python listener. So we're using the keyboard things, we can actually do the hotkeys, and it'll just run in the background to do it. Now, one of my concerns about about Python is if we actually look at it, and this is one thing which I noticed coming from AutoHotKey and running AutoHotKey script and running a Python script. This Python script would take a little bit longer because it's actually had to start up a bigger program. So in AutoHotKey, you've got something which is 1.2 megabytes as executable, and in Python, you've got the 97 plus the DLL, which is about 4.3. So you've got 4.3 megabytes, so roughly 4 times the size. So you're loading up a program 4 times the size to do exactly the same as what you're doing in AutoHotKey. Now, I work in a total Windows environment, so to me, running AutoHotKeys are fine. I feel totally comfortable with them. If I was doing a program that I want to deploy to people who are going to work on Linux and also working on iOS or something like that, I'd write it totally inside of Python and have the Python hotkeys and use that method of doing things. But if you look at the kind of way that it assigns the key, the virtual key that it goes through and finds, it's a little bit obscure. You know, I'm sort of comfortable with the way that AutoHotKey does it, and it has a whole versatility of the way that you can map the keys to do certain things. Now, I also have hundreds of I've got 3 or 4 scripts, but I've got lots and lots of keyboard shortcuts that I've used already. So I've used up a lot of my normal hotkey ones. So hotkey is normally a letter or something like a letter or a number or something like that, one of your other keys, and then it has a modifier like an Alt or a Shift or a Windows key or a Control key plus that number to trigger those things off. But it does have other methods of doing things. So this was the idea with using it this way, was the fact that I could do little Pythonic scripts that I could use. Now, one of the ones that I would be doing quite a lot is I'll be making an API call. I'll be bringing in data, and a lot of the times the data has some form of date time about it. Now, the easiest way to do a date time is to actually have it in epoch time, because it's only got one unit, which is seconds. But then you're kind of looking at this number like this, and you're suddenly thinking, well, what's that mean? What date, what time is it? What's the structure of it? What's it actually reading? So I ended up with a script coming through here, whereas I can actually just copy this one through here. I can say epoch time, and I can go E+4. So E4 is a hotkey for that one there. It's just run that script. And there, if I just go and paste it into there, we've actually got the actual date time. Now I can actually take that date time there. Now inside of Python pandas, you can have date times. You can subtract and add dates and things and times, or see the differences and things like that. So it's actually a variable in its own right that you can actually manipulate. So having it in this structure of years, months, days, hours, minutes, seconds and stuff like that. And so sometimes you're actually taking from a date time and you're copying it from there into, I'm just putting that into clipboard so that I can actually use the other one, the D3 through there. It's just opened up that and done it, and it's converting it back into an epoch time. So that's a handy little thing that I do. A lot of the times I'm actually having to jump online, go and find an online epoch converter to play with that. Whereas here I can actually just run a simple script to do it. And it's tiny wee. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of code. It's nice and easy to do it, and it's at the end of a hotkey that's quite handy to actually have. So because all of my other hotkeys are already in AutoHotKey, I suddenly thought, well, okay, then I want to do some in that. So that's one of the leads. I just wanted a different way to activate. When I actually had the small script in Python, I'd actually come in and execute them inside of VS Code. So I think I don't want to do that. So a lot of this one here is, here's my hotkey. It calls a function because, and this was another thing I want to play with, is all of my other stuff has been in version 1. Now version 1 has now become a legacy, and version 2 is now the current version of AutoHotKeys, and it's not backward compatible, so I need to sort of get a little bit of a feel for it. So while I'm doing this sort of thing, and the whole quotes and getting things to run, the syntax is slightly different, but once you sort of get there, it sort of works. But it's a little bit finicky. If I take this one here, and I just, you see I've got Python E, and then I've got a space, and then that quote mark there. Now if I take that out of that one there, so that's a reverse string. Now I'm just going to save that and reload. Now if I actually just take this thing here, go copy, and now I'm going to do that reverse string, which is R and T, it comes up in the errors. Now if I actually go and put that space back in there again and reload it, okay, who cares? Oh, sorry, let's just close it and run it again. Now if I actually take that, copy that one there and go RT, sorry, and then V, it does it backwards. Now this one here I actually find quite good. You end up kind of just doing trials on certain websites or things like that of something that you're actually interested in, and so you've got to have your email, and then you've got to give a password, and you've got to try and figure a password to actually use and make sure that it's with that site. One of the things that I've actually found is that if a lot of them, they actually want an uppercase, or they want numbers in it, and they want an odd symbol, and it has to be so many letters in length or something like that. I actually find if you just reverse your email address, it accepts it fine, whereas if you try and just do part of your email address or something like that, it tends to get all funny and get somebody says, no, that's too much like your email address, yes, you can't do it, but just reverse it, it's fine. So I thought that was an interesting one with the password one. Anyway, back to the main plot. So this is another way I can quickly activate a whole lot of Python scripts through here. So I just need to go inside of here, just run Python exe, and then the script that I actually want to do. So boom, I can actually just write those, and I just need to put it inside a function, and we are on our merry way. No problems at all. I did have a little bit of an issue with some of the pathing things for the AutoHotKey thing, but overall I've got that working. So let's just stop that now, and let's just do a couple of things. So the first thing that I just want to do is control out, we just want to go into here, and I want to run the hotkey script. So if I run that hotkey script through there, so that's the Python one running. Now, if we just click into here and look at this hotkey one, I've got three keys. I've got a Shift plus A, Shift plus B, and an Alt plus G. And most of them, all they do is just print you've executed function 1, function 3. The last one takes text from uppercase, or it makes any text into lowercase, which is the Alt plus G one. So if we come back to here, if I just go Shift, what did I say? I think it was Shift A, it said executed function. If I go Shift B, executed function 2. If I come into here and I take some uppercase text and I go Alt plus G, oops, cancel, what are you doing? Function 3 is run. Now if I just go Control V, you'll see that it's come through in lowercase. So that's fine. So that's working now. So I'll leave that active. And now the second thing that I'll do is I'll just cycle through there, and now I'll run the AutoHotKey script through here. So I'm now going to run that one there, and that's running in the background down here. So that's where it's running down in the tray menu, or just beside the tray menu. And I have both of them running. So if we now go into Task Manager and just do a refresh, you'll see that the Python is, and if we just drop it down, we've got the actual script. It's 8.8 megabytes, and the console window for this bit here as well is another 6.3 megabytes. So the overall Python script running in the background is 15.1 megabytes. If we look at the AutoHotKey down here, and this is the only one, these other ones are version 1s, and this is the only version 2 which actually has the green H on the green background, or the pale green H. This is only 3.5. So this is roughly 4 times the size of it. Now you could end up running the hotkeys. I think you can run a hotkeys if you run it as hotkeys.pyw. The pyw says that you don't have the console, but then you need to have some way of executing out of that, that you don't actually have to go into your window resources and close it down. So you may be able to get rid of that 6, but even then, this is 3, so this is at least 2.5 times as big, the Python one compared to the AutoHotKey one. So but my feeling is with me, I'll be learning a bit more about AutoHotKey version 2, and also doing a lot of triggering for my Python scripts from AutoHotKey. Because it just sits in the tray. Now that's another thing. If you see, this here is the Python script, and you can see it's basically a command log that sits on my taskbar, whereas this one here is actually a little icon that will sit inside my tray menu. Now another thing I just want to point out to you inside of, and I'm sure you can do it in Python as well, but it's just quite convenient inside of here. I've got another AutoHotKey script here, and this one here has a help for this particular one, and if I click on that help bar, it's actually got a list of all of the keys that I'm using and what they're actually doing and how they're working. So that's accessible, so I don't have to memorize what those hotkeys are, especially if they're ones that I'm using intermittently. And so I'm not doing that, I don't have to remember them all the time, and I might have some obscure hotkey for those, in which case this might so that's a nice thing that I can actually add to the AutoHotKeys to actually make this a lot more usable in a way. Now I just want to draw another little thing to your attention here. This isn't normally the way that I write hotkeys. I don't use this S and 3 and the L and 8, and the reason why is if I try typing now sky, SKY, it is pink, you'll see the S's don't come through because I've assigned that S on the keyboard to act as a hotkey rather than a letter that I can use in the alphabet. So I actually have to stop this program before I can actually use the S. So this is a dangerous way to do it. I actually do it in a different way, but I don't really want to show you what that is. So, or else having the modifiers like that. This is something that I'll be using. Now, the next thing that I just want to draw your attention to here is these are quite trivial little things. Or doing all of these, the epoch converter, doing the uppercase, lowercase, all of those. You could do all of those in AutoHotKey. But that wasn't what this was about. What this was about was the fact that I could assign a Python script to and use it and actually have an AutoHotKey to actually trigger those ones there. So if I wanted to do the one where I was doing an API call of a grocery list or something like that, it was bringing the grocery list, processing it into a pandas, putting it into a PDF and then emailing me that PDF, I can actually just put that on a hotkey and it can run 2 or 3 files as it does through here, like each of them are other steps, or I can actually just have one big combined file. So they can be a lot more sophisticated. So this was the idea of, I want to do hotkeys and I want to use the minimum resources. And again, the reason for the minimum resources is because I sometimes use some quite powerful programs for something like BIM modeling programs, and they really chew up your RAM. So you're trying to minimize what your background uses are. If you've got a lot of RAM and you're not really using it, then that's fine. But I get really frustrated when I'm using a powerful program and I'm having to wait half an hour for it to kind of click through 2 or 3 simple commands. And you're suddenly thinking this should be a lot faster, and it's not a lot faster because you've got so many resources in the background. Well, you can shut the resources down, but the thing is with this, it's to a certain extent, I would go this way for my own personal reasons. One, I sort of generally work inside a Windows environment for number one. 2, I'm comfortable with AutoHotKeys, and all the other AutoHotkey ones are generally AutoHotKeys, although I do use this thing here. I actually have to pay for this one, but AText. And the nice thing with AText is I find it absolutely fantastic for doing prototyping and testing, and you can do little scripts, but you can do VBA, Python, AutoHotKey scripts, shell scripts, PowerShell scripts, and you can do rich text and HTML, so you can do text expansion and all that sort of stuff. So this is a really, really cool program that I use, but I tend to use it for prototyping. For the ones when I actually set things up so that I've got them running all the time, I will actually tend to assign them to a hotkey through there so that I can trigger it. And just on that, at this point in time, another program that I use, it's also AutoHotKey as well, is the command picker, whereas I can run scripts that I don't use that commonly, so that I can come down and look at my list and I say, oh, that's the one that I want, or I can put it next to a number, and then I can actually just say, okay, then run the ones with the number, run command, and off it goes, off does that whatever it needs to do. So I've got a whole load of different ways of activating a whole load of keyboard or a lot of programs and things like that. And I was really looking at ways of doing this with Python and using my current methods of doing it. Now, the thing with using AText, I wouldn't like to, now I could actually just put my Python script inside of here and run it from here, but that's not where I store my scripts. This is just a handy place to play around with stuff. Most of my scripts I keep in one big folder where I actually try a lot of different things out depending on what I'm doing. So it's your own preference style to do. So the 2 things I did come across, I was having a bit of difficulty using the AutoHotKey version 2. The other thing is when I set up my AutoHotKey version 2, is before this requires the AutoHotKey v2 thing came out. So all of my version 2s have actually got the AHK2 extension instead of the .ah2, and then using this, it's just my VS Code went all wobbly on me and I couldn't be bothered trying to reset it all up again to do both 1 and 2 with that. So this may be a personal preference of mine. I find AutoHotKey a really useful resource, and I've used it for a lot of different things. I find Python seriously powerful, and I like using that. But one of the things which I do have a problem with Python is deploying it and being able to trigger that. So I'm trying to use trivial little scripts to see at what level do I actually then have to deploy onto a server using a task scheduler to actually trigger it, or actually go into a Flask app. Can I just have simple things that I can run all the way? So at this point in time, this answers my question that yes, I can do it in this manner. So there's something. So I'll put this code up for anybody who's interested in that. And thank you very much for watching. If you found it useful, please give a thumbs up. If not, op panyaha. Thank you very much for watching.